Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about low sodium, starvation, and their connection to insulin resistance. Too little salt. No, that's not a typo. You didn't mishear me. Eating too little salt can create metabolic problems. Because of the fear that salt may increase blood pressure, and it's very dependent upon the person, medical practitioners have been recommending for decades that we eat less sodium. The thought is that getting too little sodium is better than the risk of consuming too much. Unfortunately, this is far from the truth. In one study, researchers took 27 men with normal or elevated blood pressure and restricted their salt intake for 1 week. The first piece of bad news is that their blood pressure didn't drop at all. Even worse, they became insulin resistant. It's no wonder that the authors felt inclined to note the potentially adverse impact of dietary salt restriction. Additionally, a study corroborated the observation that too little salt results in insulin resistance. The second study was 152 healthy men and women had alternating weeks of low or high sodium diets, with insulin levels and insulin resistance measured at the end of each week. Similar to the previous study, subjects became significantly more insulin resistant when they ate less salt. The explanation for this salt sensitive response is based on hormones. As salt consumption drops, the kidneys initiate a process to reabsorb as much salt as possible from the urine back into the blood. Remember, this happens through a series of actions of a hormone called aldosterone. However, aldosterone is working to recover urinary salt. It antagonizes insulin, thus creating insulin resistance. So let's take a look at starvation. The typical adage is to eat less, and it has been a staple of conventional thinking with regard to controlling glucose and insulin for people who are overweight and with type 2 diabetes. Unfortunately, while it's partially based in evidence, this vague advice can potentially be misapplied or outright abused. There is a fine line between fasting and starving. Eating too little for too long can become harmful, as is the case with eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa. What's more, as we've seen, there are remarkable and unexpected effects on children born to mothers in conditions of chronic food deprivation. An important distinction between fasting, even multi day fast, and starvation is the state of muscle tissue. If a fast continues to the point of demonstrable muscle loss, the gap has officially been crossed. Fasting has turned into starvation. This isn't something that happens very readily. We aren't good for much if we have too little muscles to move our bodies. The body defends muscle until we run low on fat. And because all of us have varying levels of body fat, it's difficult to pinpoint a definite number of days when we cross that gap. Still, when done correctly, fasting can be effective at managing insulin levels. We'll discuss the therapeutic use of intermittent fasting in greater detail soon. So, that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.